Robust crowd, always a good sign. This regular meeting of the Midway ISD Board is hereby called to order. We now have 5 here for a quorum. Ms. Vick will be joining us when she can get here, and the same with Mr. Alford, both delayed, but will be here. I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of the board. This is our regular meeting for the month of March, and on a evening like this evening, I appreciate you being here, as I know the other board members do. So welcome to you and our online viewers. We do appreciate the time that you have chosen to spend being here with us. Cell phones, you know what to do with them if you hadn't already done it. So even the superintendent.
Double check.
As a reminder, the board's role is to set goals, listen to reports from superintendent and other staff members, which we've got a number of tonight if you want to stay here. Approve budgets, set tax rates, approve contracts, approve personal recommendations, make policy for the district, conduct hearings, which we got one of those tonight too. We're not here to make management decisions. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent and his staff. We have for a number of months now been opening the board meetings with reading of our mission statement, which is Midway ISD will maximize individual potential within a learner-centered and supportive environment to prepare students to excel in a global economy, along with wise, insightful words from board members. Tonight's my night. I don't have any wise or insightful words, but I did want to talk with you briefly about the Texas Constitution of 1876. How many of you know that that is the current Constitution for the state of Texas? Had some before that, that is the current one. Many of you probably also know it has been amended literally hundreds and hundreds of times. There are a few provisions in it that still stand as they did back in February of 1876. One of those is in Article 7 entitled Education, and it in fact is the first section. It is entitled Support and Maintenance of System of Public Free Schools. I generally don't like it when people read to me, but this one is short and there's a point. A general diffusion of knowledge being essential to the preservation of the liberties and rights of people, it shall be the duty of the legislature of the state of Texas, duty of the legislature of the state of Texas to establish and make suitable provision for the support and maintenance of an efficient system of public free schools. One might fairly ask, what does that have to do with our mission statement? Without all of what the staff do, we can't do what we do for the students, but we can't do what we need to do without the legislature doing what they need to do. If you've not been keeping up with what's going on in the legislature, I urge each of you to become informed and make your opinions known to the representatives down there. That's what it has to do with our mission statement. So, without further ado, moment of silence. We'll ask each and every one of us to take a brief moment here for reflection, meditation, prayer, contemplation. Thank you. I know first up on our agenda is a recognition item for a resolution. We're going to defer that, waiting on someone to get here. We'll start with the second, which is March Awareness Days, and that is the task of Dr. Alvin.
Thank you, Mr. Russick. I am going to talk to you a little bit about our recognition days this month. So March is Texas History Month. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. It is also Women's History Month, Music in Our Schools Month, Theater in Our Schools Month, and National Youth Art Month. Fine arts is something we excel in Midway ISD, and I read those bottom 3, and all I can think about is the leadership of Darryl Unhofer and those who support what we do with fine arts in our school district, and so I feel good about that. March 1st is Texas Girls in STEM Day. March 2nd through 8 is National School Social Work Week. March 3 through 7 is Celebrate Texas Public Schools Week. March 3 through 7 is also National School Breakfast Week. And March 7th was Maintenance Worker Appreciation Day. And if you've not seen the Facebook post about our very own Jimmy, someone tell me, Jimmy Bennett, and the recognition he's received for his philanthropy, I would encourage you to do so. It is also Texas Independence Day on March 2nd, and I put that one off last for a moment, and I'm gonna sound like my board president for a moment, but I have a few remarks, if I might, about the Texas Declaration of Independence was signed on March 2nd, 1836, and I too loathe when people read to me, but this is written by people from a long time ago, and they use different kind of words. I'm gonna read to you for a minute. And they wrote in the Texas Declaration of Independence, "We therefore the delegates with plenary powers of the people of Texas in solemn convention assembled, appealing to a candid world," so their audience was the entire world, "for the necessities of our condition, do hereby resolve and declare that our political connection with the Mexican nation has forever ended, and that the people of Texas do now constitute a free, sovereign, and independent republic, and are fully invested with all the rights, attributes which properly belong to an independent nation, and, conscious of the rectitude of our intentions, we fearlessly and confidently commit the issue to the decision of the supreme arbiter of the destinies of nations." And that is the terminology they used to declare independence from the nation of Mexico. They listed 13 grievances against the country of Mexico, and number 4 of 13 is that Mexico has failed to establish any public system of education, although possessed of almost boundless resources. And although it is an axiom in political science that unless a people are educated and enlightened, it is idle to expect the continuance of civil liberty or the capacity of self-government. I cannot help but find it ironic that in a time when the state of Texas has an unprecedented budget surplus, one that might be described as an almost boundless resource, that we're currently having discussions about whether or not we're actually going to fully fund a public system of education. It begs the question, do the leaders in Austin actually understand the Texas history that they're so impassioned that we teach in our schools and have a full comprehension of the reasons that we declared independence to begin with? I think it also stands to reason to ask the question that since we know the majority of Texans are opposed to vouchers, ESAs, or any other form of the diversion of public money to private schools, whether or not we can consider that they are taking seriously the axiom that educated, enlightened people cannot maintain civil liberty or capacity to self-government if we don't have a fully funded system of public schools. And so I was kind of tracking the same direction you were this evening. And so from the Declaration of Independence to the Constitution of Texas, there's clearly a disconnect between what's expected, what the people of Texas want, and some of what's going on in Austin. And so I feel like if we're going to recognize Texas Independence Day, we ought to know a little bit about it.
A disclaimer, then an apology. He and I did not talk to each other. 100% we did not. Mere coincidence, truly. Apology. I skipped Pledge of Allegiance, maybe one of the most important things on the agenda. That's on me. I was worried about getting to Mr. Tullis's, because he told me move it. So Pledge of Allegiance. But wait. We've got a group of students, Principal Kim Hawkins from Chapel Park Elementary. We're going to get introduced to these students, then they're going to lead us in the pledge.
Thank y'all for your patience.
These kids know that's how you start the day.
Yeah, they do.
They know that.
Welcome. We are so grateful to be here today. I'm the proud principal, Kim Hawkins of Chapel Park Elementary School, and I brought a very special group of students with us tonight, but their leader is right here, and the other leader, Miss Ostrom, is not here. She is doing PALS interviews tonight, but Miss Katie Talbert, I'll let you go ahead and introduce your group of students at Chapel Park.
Thank you. This is our junior Lighthouse team. This year, Midway adopted the Leader in Me curriculum, and we noticed at Chapel Park, being a new school, that we didn't have a student leadership team. So we have formed the junior Lighthouse team. This is our inaugural group of 5th graders. They have done service projects at our school. They led our Food for Families drive. They're leading a HEB plastic bag drive right now. They have done kind acts for students and teachers, and they are role models on our campus. So they are going to be leading us today in our pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag States of America.
And real quick, I forgot to introduce their names. Let me do that real quick. And you can wave when I say your name. We have Kirby Browning, Abby Hawkins, Owen Carter, Brooklyn Crumpton, Nolan Musgrove, Reagan Conrad, Will Prawl, Lonimi Edebiyi, Lily Danforth, Basilio Rosas, and Gunnar Fagan.
Good job, guys. Thank y'all very much. We're going to go back up to the agenda item for resolution from the office of Representative Pat Curry. I'm told that his chief of staff, Ashley Walter, is here now. Ashley? Hi there. Hi there.
Hi there, I'm Ashley Walter. I am the Chief of Staff for State Representative Pat Curry, who is so sorry that he couldn't be here to do this himself tonight. He has actually had a meeting with the governor today. Otherwise, he would have made the trip up 35 himself to wave and to present this great honor for you guys. But we are so proud of Midway ISD. And so I have copies for everyone mentioned in the resolution, but right now I'd like to read it for you guys if you don't mind. It says, whereas multiple campuses in Midway Independent School Districts have been ranked among the best elementary and middle schools in Texas by U.S. News, World and Report, and whereas U.S. News evaluated schools across the nation and employed a comprehensive methodology to assess proficiency in mathematics, readings, and language arts in more than 79,000 public elementary and middle schools that were a part of their analytics and were ranked based on a number of additional factors, including student background and achievement in core subjects, and whereas serving more than 8,750 students across 11 campuses, Midway ISD seeks to foster a challenging and supportive learning environment where young people are prepared to excel in a global society. The district is ably guided by Superintendent Dr. Chris Allen and is also benefits from its leadership and its Board of Trustees, which includes President Pete Russick, Vice President Susan Vick, Secretary Pam Watts, and members Rick Tullis, Brad Alford, Colin Witt, and Jonathan Green. Whereas among the campuses recognized by the U.S. News were Woodway Elementary, which ranked in the top 6.5% of over 6,600 elementary schools in Texas, and South Bosque Elementary, where at number 84 was in the top 1.2%. Additionally, Midway Middle School placed at the top 8.5% of more than 4,000 middle schools statewide. Whereas providing young citizens with a quality education is essential to creating a prosperous future for our state and nation, and Midway ISD is to be commended for all it is doing to help students reach their full potential. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Midway Independent School District is to be congratulated on its impressive showing in the 2025 U.S. News and World Report Best Elementary and Middle School Rankings. For all of those associated with the district, be extended the sincerest best wishes for its continued success within this important work. Signed, Pat Curry, State Representative of District 56. So as a former state school teacher myself, and on behalf of Representative Curry to the board, thank you so much. To all of the educators and parents of this great district, we thank you too, and this is definitely something to be very proud of. So I have a copy for all of you guys too. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley. Absolutely. Ashley, one question. Where did you teach?
Liberty.
Good for you.
Oh, history, you know all about this stuff.
Yes. That's what I was thinking.
Are we ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Can we have some more recognition with this line item to do down here? We have National Merit Finalists. Wow, has been just incredible achievement by this student. They 4 years.
Thank you, President Russick. Okay, students, when I call your name, if you will come to the front, please. Midway High School seniors Alastair McGrath and Ty Rowanfans have been named National Merit Finalists, placing them among the top high school scholars in the country. Earning this prestigious recognition is no small feat. McGrath and Rowanfans first qualified as semifinalists in September, ranking in the top 1% of students nationwide based on their PSAT NMSQT scores. To advance to finalist standing, they submitted a comprehensive application highlighting their outstanding academic performance, leadership, community service, and personal achievements, along with the school recommendation. Now, as finalists, they are in contention for National Merit Scholarships, as well as additional scholarships from universities and corporate sponsors. Scholarship recipients will be announced this spring. Congratulations to these young men on their academic achievements and this outstanding honor. Tonight, very impressive, yes. Tonight, we are also honored to recognize Ben Blaylock, a senior swimmer from Midway High School, for his recent state accomplishments. Ben is coached by Coach Dan Marlin. This year, Ben won both the 50 and 100-yard freestyle events at the Region 3 6A Championships, setting school records in both events with a time of 21:19 in the 50 and 46:36 in the 100. These times qualified him for the 2025 UIL 6A State Swimming and Diving Championships held at UT Austin. At the state meet, Ben competed against Texas top swimmers, finishing 21st in the 50-yard freestyle and 20th in the 100-yard freestyle. In his career, Ben has earned 3 district championship titles, securing first place twice in the 50-yard freestyle and once in the 100-yard freestyle, and he has qualified for the regional championships for 3 consecutive years. Please join us in congratulating Ben Blaylock on his remarkable swimming career and for representing Midway ISD with such distinction.
Okay, next up, complete change and pace, but another state level, state culinary star contest. Jess Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Russick. So a group of Midway High School students exhibited delectable skill at Aramark's statewide Culinary Star Competition, which showcases the best student culinary talent in the state. Midway High School's juniors Nehemiah Horton, Tian Lee, and Brody McKenzie competed at the event in Houston earlier this month. This culinary team is under the guidance of coaches Cheryl Haynes, Chef Logan Moore, and David Wyrick. If you guys could please come forward too. The competition is a culinary event for students that challenges them to create recipes for a predetermined pantry list, which was also used by their local competitions. A set of mystery ingredients were unveiled at the event, and the teams were required to incorporate selections into their recipe. The Dream Team, as they are named, competed against more than 40 students statewide, crafting an amazing Southwest-inspired burger, a perfect fusion of bold spices, fresh ingredients, and mouth-watering flavors. Students showcase their creativity, their culinary skills, and teamwork as they develop, prepare, plate, and present their menu. The competition helps students develop their culinary skills while learning about the food ingredients and cooking techniques. Congratulations to each of you for showcasing your talents and creativity. Thanks.
should note to Chef Logan, anytime you need additional judges for some of these competitions, we've got a ready crowd up here.
Notify us.
Yes.
State Communication Awards, 4 states in a row.
Yes, sir.
State level.
Yes, sir. All right, thank you, Mr. Russick. Each year, the Texas School Public Relations Association honors outstanding contributions to education and communications through the statewide STAR Awards. In this year's awards, every single submission from Midway ISD Communications earned a gold rating, indicating the highest quality for published work. Communications Director Emily Parks and Communication Systems Coordinator Robert Pryor were recognized for the top design in the state for Midway ISD police car logo. They also both received Best of Category and Gold Star Award for the design on the Works District Annual Holiday Card. You can see their gold medals up here, and we're going to have them put them on for their medals, for their photos here in a second, but it's quite a prestigious honor. Emily received a Best of Category and a Gold Star Award for her comprehensive written crisis communications plan, which integrates the district's emergency operations procedures and the new Midway ISD Police Department. Robert Pryor received a Best of Category and a Gold Star Award for his original design of the district's Eclipse 2024 website, which featured learning resources, information, and communication for all families. Notably, Midway ISD had the most Best of Category wins for any district in Texas with fewer than 15,000 students. We'd also like to acknowledge the contribution of our district receptionist, Tracy Upshaw, who is also a part of the communications department, who's standing by the door back there. So great work, y'all. That's outstanding.
Round of recognition, which is both, well, I don't know if there's anything good about it. It means we get on to the rest of the agenda. And if y'all want to stay, you're welcome. Public meeting. Otherwise, we're going to pause and let those folks that need to scoot on out do that.
All right.
Okay, we have 2 information items, and unless any board member has a discussion point or question on those, we'll move on to the presentation discussion items. Pam?
I had 2 questions to bring forward on item 6B, the start enrollment times. First question is, will this make middle school sports start earlier in the morning?
Not, but they already set their practice times earlier than school starts, and the majority of the students are already there, so we don't anticipate.
So that's not going to get pushed
I
back?
don't believe so. Let me get you some follow-up on that, okay?
And then will it reduce missed afternoon class time due to away games, which would certainly be a plus?
If we get out a little earlier, it could reduce the amount of time we miss. Yes, ma'am. Sure could.
That's it, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, presentation discussion items. We have a special populations update. Lisa, you're already up there. Lisa Cochran, our special ed director. Thank you.
Good evening. It gives me great pleasure to come here tonight and to share our success and our highlights of this school year and part of last school year. We've had a year of growth, innovation, and community building, supporting every student's unique journey. I always like to start out with the good stuff. Our Unified Special Olympics, we participated in basketball, bocce, track, bowling, and powerlifting. We grew from 39 students to 65 students. And just as a plug, last Friday at Academy, we took 6 campuses to compete, and we were undefeated in 3-on-3 basketball. So we're pretty proud of that. Our Empower program, our 18+ program, continues to do good work. We are partnering with Robinson ISD, and we do generate a little bit of revenue from that partnership. We have relationships with Shepherd's Heart, Dollar Tree, Walmart, UPS Store, Old Navy, Waco Hilton, ICS Gel Supply, Shipley's Donuts, Biddy and Bowes, Salvation Army, Hewitt Chamber of Commerce, Growing Our Own, and Midway ISD Cafeteria and Maintenance. We are really trying to give our students experiences and opportunities that will help them once they leave our school district. And I have to say, we are well supported by our community. Always a big thank you to the Watts family for their support, our Letterman jackets for our Special Olympic athletes, and we're very grateful for that donation and that support. We try to have family and parent engagement opportunities. We want to be available to our community. We want them to know who we are. We want them to reach out to us. We have a family open house at the start of the school year. We're doing an elementary field day, and that's when all our self-contained students who may have difficulty participating in a traditional field day come together and get to participate and have some fun across the district. And that is a district-wide event, and we bring parents out to enjoy that as well. We do a parents' night out. We do that in December, so if parents need to do a little bit of shopping, they know that their children are safe with district staff, and we provide that opportunity. We do transition nights. We do a fall and spring dyslexia parent night. And dyslexia parent night, we try to help parents understand what it means to be dyslexic. Is that the page moving? Is that the letters moving? Is it noise in your ears? And so just trying to help parents understand what their students are experiencing in school. It's not just because I don't want to do my work. It's because sometimes doing the work is really hard. And just educating. We do a movie night at the secondary level. Of course, we have Torchbearers Banquet, where we recognize our Special Olympic athletes and teachers who've made an impact in their life. And then we are hosting our Unified Special Olympics Regional Track Meet. Big shout out to Brad Shelton, he helps us with these things. And then we'll do a 6th and 9th grade transition night. What we're finding is that as our 5th graders move to 6th, as our 8th graders move to 9th, it's a big step. And what does that look like in the world of special education? What does that look like by way of responsibility, by way of how do I know what I don't know? And so just trying to help parents navigate that. It's tough with a student who can do all the things. It's even harder for students who don't necessarily communicate all the challenges or changes or needs. And so we're trying to be more respectful of that. So things that we did this year that have turned me gray. We have updated our technology system. We now have a hub. We went to an Empower platform, that's the name of it. It's streamlined. It is special education, Section 504, RTI, GT, and EB. It is one giant hub of information, and we are hoping that as we build this database, we will be able to find all the information we need on any and every student within our district. There's not going to be a place to go here to find one piece or a place to go here. It is all consolidated into one database. Empower feeds into Education Modified, which is a digital tracking system for accommodations. This is excellent for us. In Midway ISD, our parents want to make sure that their children are receiving the services that we have discussed and agreed upon. This allows classroom teachers to get accommodation updates overnight, so they don't have to update the form. The system updates the form, and then classroom teachers are able to update accommodations digitally versus a paper copy or a Google Doc or something here or something there. This is going to unite the district across the board with Section 504, RTI, and special education. So if a parent has a question, we can pull the data, and it's been tracked. So we're real excited about this piece. It's been a challenge to get all the systems talking to each other. I'm not a technology person. I wouldn't stand up here and say that I was. A lot of help from Jesse Garn, Sarah Collins, the folks that work with IT. They've really been instrumental in helping us get this off the ground, protecting our data, protecting records, making sure we have everything, and then coding. And languages, I don't know very much about. So we're excited, and we are still working on glitches, but we are definitely moving in the right direction. And we think this will be helpful for our teachers, our students, and everybody who works with kiddos. We have some strategic partnerships. Of course, we're working with Baylor University. We're working with PhD level students that are coming in and giving us ideas, and we're supporting. We are working with Children and Claris for Children and Families, Thrive, and Methodist Children's Home. We have interns and practicum students targeting areas of vision impairment, school psychology, physical therapy, occupational therapy. So we are trying to utilize our community and our resources to the best of our ability to bring folks in and to help and serve in our district. We are also working with Region 12 on early childhood support. Some of our challenges that we're facing is House Bill 3928. It came into play last school year. When we moved dyslexia under the special education umbrella, there's a lot of kiddos that we had to take into the special education program, but they also had to be reevaluated if their assessment was older than 1.5 to 2 years. We also had kiddos that needed maybe more, or maybe they needed IEP goals, or they needed additional accommodations, or they needed additional supports. And looking at all of those students and making sure that we were meeting their educational needs. One piece of that House Bill 3928 is that we also had to make sure that students going into and coming from DAP, that those parents understood as well that they were entitled to ask for an individual evaluation for their student for special education. Is the reason that they went into DAEP, could it have been a disability? Could there have been emotional issues? And so they have a right to ask for that assessment piece as well. We have not done that in the past. That is picking up here lately. We've had some additional kiddos we've had to test out of DAEP. And again, if that's what we need to do, we'll do it. It's still something we haven't had to do in the past. Medicaid and SHARS coordination. Medicaid billing has become more complex, and what we can bill for has become less. So things we used to bill for in the past, we cannot. They're becoming stricter with must be a medical service. We do toileting, feeding, prompting and cueing, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, school-based counseling. So we do have services that we can bill for, but we also have to maintain those records. We're subject to audit, and the funding that's coming in is less and less every year. So a funding stream that used to be pretty, it used to be worth the effort we were putting into it. We're looking at it and trying to determine, how is this helping us? How is this working for us? Things along that vein. The state of Texas, when they said we weren't identifying enough several years ago, I think the state of Texas took it upon themselves to personally turn that around, because we are identifying. We're identifying students in Midway ISD, but it's a trend across the state of Texas. Eligibility requirements for special education have changed. We used to have a non-categorical early childhood designation, 0 to 6. Now we have developmental delay, 0 to 9. And the definition, the state is still trying to put out guidance for it. And so autism, we're seeing an uptick in autism identification and eligibility. Right now, the CDC reports 1 in 36 kiddos are diagnosed with autism. We're seeing that uptick. We're seeing a severity of autism more intense. And so we are trying to work on that and make sure we're identifying and doing right by our kiddos. Other health impairment has changed. Medical illnesses that we used to have to get doctor's signatures in the past, there's some leeway with those pieces. So we're seeing some changes in eligibility as well. probably what you'll hear from anyone in the state of Texas is resource constraints for us in special education. Quality special education teachers and professional support staff, hard to find and hard to keep. And so that is something we struggle with. Want to take care of our teachers, want to take care of our professional staff, want to do good things for our people because they do good things for our kids. And so that is something we struggle with. I mean, we've been struggling with, and that's not changed. I put up here early childhood because it's a focus for us right now. Our early childhood is growing. We've already done 45 to 50 assessments in early childhood, and that is 2 to 5. And what we're seeing is that the autism, but what we want to do is have early identification. We want to get in there, we want to identify, we want to put in intervention strategies. If that is specially designed instruction, then we want to go ahead and put those pieces in place. Early intervention is the best intervention. Our goal is that when our kiddos hit kindergarten, we're going into a gen ed kindergarten. So our pre-K3 and pre-K4 early childhood programs, they're growing and they are requiring more support and more need, but we think it's really important that we hit those age ranges as hard as we can because that's going to make a huge difference for our kids down the road. The ideal is that we can get them into gen ed classes. So things, you guys, I always share with you, we're at 1,485 special education students. Remember, we took in dyslexia, so that number is going to be bigger. I mean, just the natural bringing in another group of students. We also have 1,009 Section 504 students. We grow about 100 students annually. Some kiddos leave, some graduate, some go to homeschool, private school, different things, but we grow by about 100 students. We evaluated over 300 students last year. An evaluation, just if you didn't know, takes about 10 to 12 hours a kiddo. And it can go up, it can go down, but you have to go talk to the parents, you have to talk to the teachers, you have to do an observation, you have to review the data, you have to reach out to medical providers. It is not just administering a standardized assessment and that's it. You want to look at your data and make sure it fits, it matches, it's a good representation of the student. So we had over 300 initials, but we're also required to reevaluate a third of our population every year. That's another 495 kids. So our evaluation teams, our speech paths, our OTs, our PTs, they're working, they're testing, they're doing it to it. So we have a lot of testing, we have a lot of kids, we have a lot of needs. How is Midway ISD keeping up with all of that? Well, pretty darn good, if I don't say so myself. We're consistently meeting performance indicators. We met all our compliance standards. We met standard by TAPR, and we are regularly reviewing data. We are a data-rich district. We have all sorts of information at our fingertips, and we are looking at that data to make sure that students are growing behaviorally and academically. I like to show y'all this because it always makes my heart feel warm and fuzzy. Those zeros are the best score you can get. And we had zeros across the board, which means we're meeting all our compliance indicators. It's not an easy thing to meet all these indicators, so I take great pride in showing y'all this. It essentially is my report card. That 11A and 11B, where we have 100% compliance, that means we are testing our students in a timely manner, coming to the table in a timely manner, and getting services in place in a timely manner. And so that's good stuff for our students. We try very hard to get students assessed as quickly as we can because we know while we're in this process, they're waiting for services. So the goal is to always do it as quickly and efficiently as we can so we can get kids in services as quickly as we can. And the taper, I could only meets requirements. The other options are needs intervention, needs substantial intervention, and there was one more thing, but it wasn't good. So meets is where we want to be. Some success stories, just so you guys kind of know, we had a little girl learning to use her cane. Like, that's huge. That's huge. That's something that will impact her the rest of her life. We had the Letterman jacket ceremony. We had a good turnout. We want our parents to be involved. We want our parents to come and know how important their children are. And those are just things we celebrate as a department. Things that I want to do that I think we should continue to work on is to expand our partnerships. Anything we can do to help get resources or our support or folks helping us in district, we want it. Professional development. Right now I have 6 teachers, dyslexia teachers, that are working on their CALT certification. That is a Certified Academic Language Therapist. That's the highest certification we can get for our dyslexia therapists. And they'll come out with their master's degrees as well. That's good training, and that's good intervention for Midway students. And again, that's the highest certification you can get for a dyslexia teacher. We want to continue to work on family engagement. Again, that's a goal. Parents need to know we're here for them. And then, of course, utilizing all tools and resources to ensure student growth. That drives everything we do, is making sure that kiddos are moving forward. And that is all that I have for you tonight. I'm incredibly grateful to my teams, and of course to my administration. I work with Ashley and Paul and Becky and Wesley and all the folks every day, and we could not do the great things we do in Midway ISD without the support from our administration and our leadership and this board. Thank you very much. Questions?
I was wondering if you could flip back to, I believe it's your first information slide. Thank you for your support. Sorry. Keep going. There we go. Stop. I wanted to point out this young lady in the middle who's sitting with her arms folded. If y'all weren't aware, there was a powerlifting competition that she was in that made it to an Instagram video that I want to say last I heard was at 3 million views. And having a great privilege to be at that ceremony, I was just amazed that all of these young people that were getting their jackets were having them presented to them with a great introduction by staff sponsors. I didn't realize we had so many different people working with these kiddos. And the level of family support, the level of staff support, and the level of student support by their own classmates who show up to help them so that they can do these things. And this goes far beyond this data of us checking the boxes and doing what we're supposed to do. The different athletic events that they compete in is rather mind-boggling. And if that doesn't speak to maximizing individual potential to prepare them to excel, these kids are getting a chance to excel. And it was just really exciting to watch, and I wanted to highlight that and to commend you and your team. So thank you.
Thank you. She is so much fun. This whole group of kids and their families, they've grown up together in Midway ISD, and it's an incredible group of kiddos.
It was so cute to watch her clearly not want to get up and be recognized, and she went from not even wanting to get out of the chair to coming forward and being in the spotlight, which is a real challenge, and just seeing her come up and get the recognition that she deserved. That was an achievement in itself, and that was just really precious and exciting to watch.
Thank you.
Hey, so I'm a huge fan of family engagement sort of across the board. Everything we do, from athletics to fine arts to classroom, and I think special ed is a great example of that, because I know that there's only so much we can do here right with the students that's got to be kind of in coordination with what's going on at home, because sometimes there's things happening we don't know about or that need to at least be connected with what we're trying to do. So one of the things that you said that really intrigued me is, so the new platform that you guys have that has all these sort of data pieces coming together in one place, is there a parent portal element to that where the parents can sort of see a version of that, maybe not every single bit, but something so that we know there's not a disconnect, right, between, what one person heard in a meeting or another meeting is sort of all right there for the parents to see. Is that part of that?
So we don't have a parent portal yet, but we think that they're working on putting one together for us. But what we are able to do with this system is send documents electronically. So everything that we've done can go to parents straight through. If they agree to allow everything to be sent electronically, and a lot of our families do, it is all sent to them straight from the system. Once we input all the data, it goes straight to the families. But they are working on a parent portal option.
Yeah, it just seems, I think that would be great, because I know that sometimes sometimes a parent's in a meeting and thinks they hear one thing or thinks something, and it's just, I think it would help a lot to streamline and make sure everybody's on the same page, so to speak. So that's a great opportunity, so
And
that's
we
good.
offer parents the opportunity to record an ARD meeting or any kind of meeting. That is
sure.
part of our standard protocol. Is anybody recording? And if they're not, do you want us to record? Like, that is an
Do
option.
those recordings flow into that system too? I mean, is it a digital
No, we
to that
keep
point?
those separate.
Okay.
So the memory capacity, we are keeping those in our Google Drives because we have unlimited
Oh, sure.
memory there.
You
And
could
so,
point to them with URLs if you need to.
and
Yeah.
so they get a copy. If they want a copy, we provide a copy for them.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Other questions for Lisa? Very good. Thank you, Lisa. Outstanding report. We appreciate that. Monthly finance report, Wesley.
All right. Good evening, members of the board. Just want to give a quick update on the fiscal year 26 budget process. If you guys have questions on the financial report, of course, you're welcome to ask. Today, Tuesday the 25th, our budget submissions from campuses and departments were due. Did have a few requests for extensions already on some of those, but we're looking through those, getting those organized. Of course, we don't have a school finance bill that's been passed. We have a couple of proposals out there, and more than likely there'll be some sort of combination of the two. We do have a projection based on the House's version. They have about a $200 and change increase to the basic allotment. Both the House and Senate have an increase to the golden penny yield. The Senate side, they have no change in basic allotment, but money put toward a salary allotment. And so using the House's basic allotment increase and the golden penny yield, and I used this year's WADA, kind of where we stand for this year, just projected that for next year since we were kind of flat this year. We're looking at, it was about a 1.3 million deficit with no new positions and no raises. I'm hoping that the revenue estimate is conservative and it comes out, better than that. Of course, we know what happened last legislative session too, so kind of have to be ready for anything. But that's kind of where we stand with the fiscal year 26 budget process. And in April, of course, I'll have more information for you guys. Any questions?
Real quick, has that been communicated to our representative? Yep. Okay.
Well, which part? Where we're sitting on basic allotment, Senate versus House?
Yeah. When you run
Yes, sir.
our numbers through the formula for what's proposed out there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The other thing I will share, which kind of wraps into Lisa's presentation, Speaker Burrows, and you were with me when he said this is on both sides of the House, they're talking about helping special education funding. The House has $1.7 billion for special education funding. We just don't know how that's going to work through the formulas yet. So when Wesley talks about these projected numbers, it takes increased fund for spending. It doesn't take that into account because we have no. They say they were going to increase by 1.7 bill, but they've also talked about moved to intensity of services model of funding versus the straight weights, and we just don't really have any idea how that's going to flow through the formulas. So we expect that to help us on the general fund side because we're underfunded to the tune of 1.1 million a year right now anyway. So any offset frees up money in our general revenue. There's also a bill, and I think this is a separate bill, Lisa may know more with this than I do, where they're talking about giving $1,000 per evaluation. And you just heard her say, we do 300 initials a year. So you're
Does that
at
count
three-
the third, 1/3 that we have to redo every year as well?
I want to clarify before I speak to that. I know they talked about 1,000 for initials. I don't know if that included all evals, or is it just initials, Lisa?
Just initially.
Okay, so that's $300,000. So depending on which of those things make it through the sausage making process, any and all of those pieces can just free up more general funds that we can use for other things that we need to prioritize.
Yep.
So we're hard at work.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
Hey, so on-
Lisa, kind of sidestep just a little bit, has this been communicated with our special education parents? How critical it is to be legislatively engaged and aware of what's going on that's going to affect their kiddos?
You know, we have not sent anything out to our spec parents as far as the legislature or the bills that are currently in process. We have not.
Could they not be invited to sign up for the district legislative alert so they could stay informed and engaged? Because this is the most critical population that's going to be affected by funding, if I'm not mistaken, other than all of them, but.
and it's the one about which one could make the argument there's the most kind of agreement on both sides.
Right.
So what I would tell you is that although there's not been a specific target to the sped parent population, it is an issue we've been banging through our emails, through legislative alerts and other communications. There's not a place I go that I don't talk about us being underfunded sped to the tune of 1.1 mil. But as Ms. Cochran was talking, I was making eye contact with Emily. We will put a specific communication out to her parent group that wraps all this up in a nice bow.
Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah.
On the other side of the coin, we're talking about additional funding. Are there any partially funded or unfunded mandates in any of these bills that could kind of hit us the other direction that we're seeing?
I haven't seen anything. I mean, last session, the big one was, safety security.
Right.
All the requirements there, we were, woefully underfunded. There's talk, SPED, as Dr. Allen mentioned, SPED and safety security are the two that really, across the aisle, everybody's kind of in agreement with to put more funding into. But I haven't heard of any more mandates necessarily without funding.
So on the 26 budget cycle then, since we're at July 1 start year for that, right? We'll approve the budget in June, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the tax
And
rate?
the tax rate in August.
In August, right.
Other questions for Wesley? Very good. Thank you, Wesley.
Keep planting your magic beans.
New personnel positions, while we're talking about money in every school district, money is people.
Good evening, Mr. Russick and board members. Thank you so much for providing me some time this evening to talk through and sort of bring us back around to some conversations that we've already started around personnel needs, and I'm bringing you some requests to consider this evening. I do want to start this out with some celebrations. We don't often get to celebrate in personnel at this time of year because there's a lot going on, but we do have some celebrations and some early wins that I want to bring to your attention. Our first big celebration is thanks to you and your support at our February board meeting when we brought to you, if you'll recall, 5 new positions. 4 of those were related to special education needs at our elementary level, and 1 of those was related to a specials teacher at Park Hill, and specifically focused on STEM, adding a rotation there to accommodate growth. And you supported our early adoption of those and approval of those positions. We got them posted right after that board meeting, and 4 of those positions have been hired already for next year. And that is a really big win for us. Speaking of earlier job postings, thanks to some input from our principals, we took an earlier stance this year on getting some positions posted. It's challenging at the elementary level as we're still projecting some needs and growth, and we don't always know what grade levels specifically we need early on at the elementary level. But at secondary specifically, as we received resignations, we started posting those positions prior to spring break and did that earlier in February, which is a change in practice for us. At the elementary level,
what we did is we posted an at-large position for elementary and for special education, and we implemented an in-house screening process with the help of Kathleen Minshew, who is our coordinator for mentoring and induction. She screened early applicants and started to sort of peel them out to elementary principals where we knew positions would exist, but we just weren't sure of the grade level. Those principals got on hiring as early as possible. I'm happy to say that prior to leaving for spring break, in the past, we had not made hires prior to spring break. We went live with our job postings the Friday we got out. This year, we had 8 positions hired prior to leaving for spring break. And since I created this presentation last week, we've brought on an additional 8. So we are ahead of the game this year in hiring positions for next year. And we have also kicked off a very focused hiring campaign with the help of our communications department and some new thoughts on how we're advertising our openings. So a lot of great things to celebrate. Yes.
Are those new hires, are they coming from, or new graduates or from other school districts? Kind of where are you?
Kind of a variety. We've had a couple of paraprofessionals in-house that have gotten their certifications and have moved into professional positions for next year. It's very exciting. And then we have some interns who are graduating from Baylor or from other programs that are coming in, but we've also had some move-ins from other districts. Even one person I think that has returned to Midway, left us, stayed home for a little while, or went to another district and is coming back. So we kind of have a mixed bag of what we're seeing.
Good, thank you.
So thinking back to our time together in October at our special called board meeting, I talked with you a little bit about the challenges we're having with recruitment and retention. We talked specifically about teacher needs across the board. And then we looked specifically at some special education trends and needs there. We all have talked frequently about how our pipeline is drying up, which may be where you were kind of going with that question. We see fewer and fewer students coming out of college programs. We see a lot more alternatively certified teachers or teachers that we hire under DOI agreements and arrangements. But teaching in general is difficult to attract people to this profession nowadays, and it's for a variety of reasons. But what we hear when we talk about or talk to our teachers and our staff here and hear from them, workload plays a big part in that, kind of work quality and work-life balance. And we have some very specific hard to fill areas. Math and science at the secondary level is challenging. Special education, all levels, is challenging. And so we have been working, and I'll review some efforts that we've had in place for the last couple of years that we've heavily been focused on kind of identifying factors that are contributing to these challenges and seeing where we have low-hanging fruit, where we can make some adjustments on efficiency and work in-house, and then what our next steps are. So my presentation and my request tonight is really in an effort to address these highlighted areas here, our workload and work quality for teachers, and addressing some very specific student and behavior needs and academic needs, and some of those rest in our special education areas. So what is it that our teachers say? We get feedback through a variety of ways. Last year, we conducted an employee survey with the help of TASB. It gave us some really great data. We had not done that survey since COVID when we rolled that out last year, and it gave us some rich information that we have been talking through and working with at both the district level and our campus levels. We have conducted that survey again this year so that we can have some comparative data, and TASB is currently pulling that information together for us, and we should have that in the next couple of weeks. We also conduct exit checklists. We actually provide exit checklists to employees who are leaving, and they are able to complete a survey within that checklist and are able to request exit interviews if they want to talk to someone in the Human Resources Department. So we glean information both from those surveys and from exit interviews. And then Dr. Allen solicits questions and comments and concerns through his Spirit of Communication efforts every month, and we're able to answer really in real time for teachers and staff. We're able to answer questions on a monthly basis through there. And from all of these areas and other anecdotal conversations we have with with our hiring supervisors across the district, we hear constantly, no surprise, that compensation is the #1 factor in job satisfaction and the biggest concern at times. But we hear other things as well. We hear that the workload is heavy. This looks different for a variety of people depending on the grade level they work with. Some of our elementary classrooms are sitting at bigger numbers and bigger class sizes. Secondary, we did an analysis in the fall this year of our secondary master schedule, and 11 of our teachers across the secondary campuses were sitting with student course loads or case loads of over 175. We have tried to address planning time, at least in our tested subject areas, but other teachers are feeling some heaviness there with teaching more sections, more students, and less time to plan. All of this is exacerbated by a shortage in our substitute pool. We are constantly adding substitutes. I mean, even this week, we're onboarding additional substitute teachers, but we have people that come off of that list as well. We have some days that we have open positions across the district, and we're trying to address that in a variety of ways. But when a substitute does not pick up an open job, other people are having to cover that, and that may mean those kids are dispersed to other teacher classrooms, or we pull and utilize people in different capacities. So it kind of looks different depending on the grade level you're working with. Student behaviors, we hear constantly more support is needed there. Our teachers desire more training and more leadership opportunities, but many of them feel that their capacity, they just don't have the capacity to take on more of that. And this all impacts morale. This is not just a problem here at Midway. Our teachers see what's happening in our legislative session and what our legislators are saying, and they realize that this is a problem outside of just Midway, but we're trying to look at what we can meet here to help alleviate some of this. So what have we already done? Overall, we've really been looking at efficiency and how we can add by subtracting where we can. We completed a master schedule audit at the secondary level this fall. We worked on that some last spring as well. Kim Booth has been an integral part of working with all 3 of our secondary campuses to make sure that we're being efficient in how we're scheduling teachers, how we're utilizing them, maximizing what we can in that area. We restructured, if you'll recall, DAEP and Horizons last year, and condensed the staff that is serving those programs in the way we address those programs and those students, and we're able to bring some people back on at the high school to address master schedule needs. And we've limited those PLC planning periods at our secondary campuses to tested subject areas, plus a couple of outliers there. So we kind of took some PLC planning time away from teachers who were not in those tested subject areas, and they're filling some of that extremely difficult for them. In special education specifically, we are right in the middle of working on reconfiguring some of our program areas, especially in the areas of our self-contained. That's at every level, elementary and high, middle and high, and also in our resource classrooms and the subject areas that we're serving in resource, so that we can better utilize staff across our campuses. Lisa and her team have been very mindful about what campuses contain which programs and how we can be efficient in condensing classrooms or condensing personnel and rethinking some things there. We implemented an increase in the self-contained stipend for our self-contained teachers across the district for this year. And we have differentiated the pay structure and the way that we calculate salaries for our special education classroom paraprofessionals or educational aides. We also repurposed some positions at the district level to provide additional support for our teachers. We heard that we need additional help with Dyslexia 504. We reutilized some of Lisa's staff and reconfigured how they are supporting our teachers and handled that at the district level. And if you'll recall, we designed how our learning coaches and now MTSS facilitators are supporting campuses to be responsive to student behaviors, but also to academic needs, so that we can have people on the campuses that are focused on those processes and interventions that are needed at the campus level. So those are many things that we've already done. What are some additional solutions that we have in mind? We will be coming in the next couple of months to talk compensation plan as we do each year. Obviously, with this being a legislative year and a lot being talked about currently related to various things that will impact compensation, it may be a little bit delayed this year in comparison to years past. But what can we talk about today? Really focusing in on the work quality and the student needs and how we can address some of those concerns and how we can help our teachers manage workloads. This is going to require some additional personnel. We feel like we have spent the last 18 months really assessing our current personnel structure and how we can use it more efficiently. And so now we're coming in to say, here's our next step and here's our next desire. We want to address planning time at the secondary campuses. We want to help bring PLC time back to all of our core content teachers in special education. And we have some program growth at the high school and in special education, in CTE and in special education that we want to be responsive to. And we really want to be mindful of our teacher overall student counts. And we want to get them under 175. Ideal would be under 150, which is pretty traditional, 150 to 160 for secondary. But right now, we'd like to not have any of our teachers sitting at more than 175 students. So this looks like it can be an overwhelming list, but we have a variety of positions here. What I'd like to point out is that these positions all directly impact our students. They're intended to be direct support for our students and classroom teachers. So the very first bullet point there, we're asking for 7 secondary teachers. That would allow for all of our core content areas to have a PLC time added back into their schedule. And we have identified that if we had 2 at Midway Middle School, 2 at River Valley Middle School, and 3 at Midway High School, we could accommodate that. Dance is a very popular elective at our middle school campuses. We currently have 1 dance teacher that splits her time between River Valley and Midway Middle. We would like to allow her to remain at River Valley full-time and bring on a full-time dance teacher at Midway Middle that also could help to provide some support to a very strong and growing dance program at the high school. So we feel like with 1 FTE there, we could meet a couple of needs across both of our middle school campuses and even support our high school campus. We're requesting a CTE health science teacher due to program growth. Most of this growth is happening in our upper level practicum classes and offerings there. And so in order to meet student requests and interests in that level, we are requesting that. We currently have at the middle school level, our intervention class for math is called Math Insights. And we've already got Insights teachers and classes at both of our middle school campuses, but need some additional support at Midway Middle School. Mr. Fisher currently has a part-time FTE that is vacant this spring that was used for another effort. And we would like to add a half-time FTE to that so that he could hire a full-time Math Insights teacher to add some additional support there, and it would be funded with our Title I funding for that campus. Program growth at the high school, we do need an additional special education co-teacher. And then looking at some district level special education positions that would provide direct support to current services or program growth. We currently have 2 special education specialists that support secondary efforts. We have 1.5 that support elementary efforts. So we would like to request a half-time FTE at the elementary level to add to the existing half-time FTE and bring that up to match our secondary support. Lisa mentioned increased assessment needs and caseloads for our diagnosticians, so we would like to request 2 additional diagnosticians, 1 that would support secondary and 1 that would support elementary. We also are requesting a special ed counselor. We currently have students who have ARDED support that is needed through counseling efforts from the special education angle, and we have a variety of people that are sort of piecemealing that together, and we would like to bring this position in so that it can offer the direct support for our students so that we can take that off of some existing positions that are currently spread throughout the district level folks. We also, due to increased caseload, need an additional speech language pathologist. And then this last position, we piloted an idea this year that Anne Marie Zellers brought to us with the increased needs of our staff mental health support. Our staff currently has access through our employee assistance program to mental health supports outside of the district. But Anne Marie had the idea of bringing someone in-house and seeing if it might help our staff in-house. And so this year we used additional funds from our wellness account, unused funds maybe from previous years in our wellness account, and decided to bring someone on for 10 hours a week just to see if that was something that our staff was responsive to and found important. We had to mid-year increase her to 15 hours per week. And we would like to bring her on for 20 hours per week, and we would no longer be able to fund that out of the wellness budget, and would need to bring that over to general fund. So she is busy every week. Some weeks she's even gone up to 16 and 17 hours. There's a lot of need, and our staff has been very appreciative of that for her, or from her. So this totals 15.5 FTEs. In estimates, this is about $930,000 in addition to what we will be talking about in future months with compensation. So this is a consideration item for you later on in the agenda, and I would love to entertain any questions.
Who wants to go first?
So in
So
terms of
Not
the
everybody
dollar-
at once.
in terms of the dollars, how much was the elementary? Remind me again. Where did those FTEs land? The 5?
So the 5, you estimate about 60,000, so 300,000.
About 300, okay.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
A couple questions. Looking at compensation, is that more starting compensation, or is this the veteran teachers' compensation? Which demographic of the teachers are struggling with the compensation amount?
I don't know if I understand your question.
5 to
When-
15 years is where we struggle the most. We are not on the average, we're not in the top 2 or 3 across the board, but where the greatest gap is defined is in that 5 to 15 year range. And we've been working the last several years to try and close that gap. As we've tried to shift our strategy to your best recruitment is retention, trying to get a little more competitive in that market.
So and then along those lines, when they say compensation, are they saying compensation versus the general business market, or they're saying compensation with us versus other school districts?
Relative to other school districts.
Okay.
Yes, sir. One of the things that's worth keeping in the back of your mind as we have these discussions is at the ledge on both the House and Senate side, so there's agreement on this, is basically a teacher salary allotment, and the numbers they're kicking around are between $5,000 and $10,000 per teacher. Those numbers are not hard because depending on the size of the district, those numbers fluctuate. They've even got a metric in there for how many years of service, and so it's a little bit all over the map. But if you look at a $50,000 a year teacher, and I'm using round numbers because that's how I do math, right? A $10,000 increase is 10%, 5 is 5%. And so those are pretty significant increases. And so part of what's worth keeping in the back of your mind is if the state comes in that strong on teacher compensation increases, then that we wouldn't necessarily have to have the burden of carrying that for the teachers who are affected by that piece of legislation, right? That doesn't cover aides and bus drivers and this and the other. But those are pretty significant increases that the state may be funding for us, for
But they're
lack of a
still
better term.
proportional, so if we're
Yes.
behind other school districts, we're still behind other school districts.
Yes, sir. But you
Because
start to
really-
reach a level of, so you've heard me say before, there's a little bit of advantage of coming to Midway, but when you can't make rent, that doesn't really matter. If those salaries get to a certain level, then that becomes less of the issue. Now it's just straight up competition, and we're trying to chip away at that by looking at compensation as well as quality of the work, like what their work life is like.
I mean, because it's a very practical matter, we've not, despite all the administration's best efforts and the board's sincere interest in it, we haven't been able to keep up with inflation over the past several years of what we've increased our staff pay. I mean, we just hadn't.
And some of it, Mr. Tullis, is in anecdotal conversations with teachers, it's a feeling of not being appropriately compensated for the increase in the work that they're doing, increased student behaviors, increased effort toward academics, increased time in their day to do things. I mean, the job in itself is just getting bigger.
Well, and the frustrating thing here is the state legislature really sets the base pay for the whole state. It's not, I mean, we're dealing with the margins.
Yes.
And a little bit here, a little bit there. Yeah, I mean, we would love to pay them what their
Right.
market value is, but we're only compensated so much by the state. So it's the frustrating part. I want them to be compensated well. We're limited on what we have to give. Which kind of, one of my other questions, the feeling unappreciated, undervalued, from what group? From the students, the parents, the faculty, the school board? Where are they feeling that lack of appreciation?
I think it's a sense of the state of education today. I mean, they can feel it, they're feeling it from the state level. They're feeling it, they may be feeling it from parents if they're working with a population where the parents aren't highly involved or aren't supportive of their efforts and they feel working against instead of with. It could be cultural it's kind of different for everybody. It's what's their story.
Well, we certainly control part of that, right? I mean, if it's from us or from the administration, we need to be doing whatever we can to make sure they know it's not.
Right, which is
a lack
why
of appreciation
we're
from
doing
us.
some, like the TASB survey 2 years in a row, which is sort of atypical, but we
Yeah.
want people to know we're listening, we're being responsive, here's what we've done so far, here's what we can do next. And the conversations that Dr. Allen and the executive team have with our principals directly about any feedback, whether that's through that TASB survey or exit surveys or other conversations that are
If
had.
there's something else, I won't speak for the board, but I'm sure they would all say, if there's something else we can do, please let us know and plug us in, get us involved in that process.
Absolutely,
I know we
thank
have
you.
very little touch with the general.
Mr. Tullis, what I would say is, for this administration to feel comfortable asking for this number of positions, I think tells you the level of support that we feel from the board in trying to take care of our staff. We know this is not a light ask, but we also know that we've been talking about these issues for a little while. And we've been in the process of reconfiguring the staff. One of the things I mentioned when we did our first rating is that it's actually lower, the administrative cost ratio is lower now than what it had been in the previous 2 years, because we are trying to channel more and more resources directly to classroom and directly to what's going on our campuses. We're in a little bit of an I feel like we have pushed about as hard as we can push with our staff, and if we don't start to do some things to bring some relief, we're going to have a next level of challenge. But what I'm really trying to respond to is, like, what more can the board do? The fact that we even feel like we can have this conversation with y'all, I think, should be an indication of how much support we feel like we receive from the board.
Yeah, and I understand the the general disappointment compensation, versus what they could make in the marketplace versus all those things. And it's a little disheartening because we made a big, most people understand it, but we basically funded it with reserve dollars this last year's pay increase. And then it still didn't feel great because it was only, 2%?
Yes, sir.
So,
and we're still at roughly 30% in our fund balance. And so we have the flexibility to push in on this. I'm expecting some help from the state to offset some of these expenses.
Yeah.
If we don't get that support from the state, we're going to have a whole other set of issues, kind of no matter what we do.
Yeah.
That brings us to the question I want to raise, and it's not necessarily for Dr. Kniesen to answer, but there's an aspect of this presentation that makes me angry, not at you and not at this district, but there comes a point where you don't have any more notches in your belt that you can tighten. And my question is, what would this landscape look like? How would it change if we could fully staff our campuses, fairly compensate our staff, if public education were fully funded?
If you took our basic allotment and moved it from 6160 to 7,500, that number is, and then we'd be able to work with that. And the number you'd be getting at. And then, by the way, I say that 7,500 number gets us to the buying power that a dollar had in 2019.
Already behind.
It's, I know as hard as I push on the ledge and as far as I can get about this, I know that number's not realistic. Every $100 increase to the basic allotment is $1.6 billion to the state. And even with our surplus, that's a pretty heavy lift. However, it also speaks to the degree to which the state has ignored this issue. They allowed this problem to get this big. And now if you just look at the straight up numbers, it's an issue that's going to take some time to climb out of. That's why the notion of the Senate not having anything in any of their bills related to basic allotment increases, I need to pick my words wisely. It's hard to understand how you can claim to want to do what's right for public schools and not take into account that we're going to be fairly hamstrung if there's not a big move on basic allotment.
Yeah, because great that you're going to say, districts, here's some money to pay teachers more, but as you know, we got all these other folks that make up that roughly $77 million of our M&O budget. It's not just teachers, and without the basic allotment, paying teachers more doesn't help us on those other numbers.
And does nothing to help with a 206% increase in property casualty insurance, 50% increase in fuel over the last 5 years, 50% increase in what we're doing for teachers on health benefits the last 5 years. And we've, through miracles and the brilliance of Wesley Brooks, been able to do what we've been able to do without an increase in the basic allotment. One of the best things we did for our district was go get those 3 additional golden pennies because it's tied to the golden penny yield. And we're actually getting some additional state aid because of that. And Wesley talked earlier about they've got budgeted a golden yield increase, and they like to take credit for that. They like to pat themselves on the back for that golden penny yield increase. They're legislatively required to, y'all. They're doing what they have to do. It's tied to the top 96% of the districts in the state of Texas. They have to do that. So while they're taking a bow for it, it's like, well, you kind of don't have a choice. And so I'm appreciative of the money, but we also need to tell the truth when we're talking about these things.
Okay, so Ashley, so you said it was 930,000-ish is the
Yes, sir.
total cost?
That's the estimate, yes, sir.
Okay, and by this presentation, I think I know what your answer is. You're saying instead of taking that money and spreading it around for teacher salary increases, that the better use is to invest it in more staff?
We're trying to meet 2 needs.
Yeah.
Compensation is one thing, and there are these other things that continue to rise to the top. With workload, work quality, we need additional support. We can continue to try to answer every problem with compensation, but at some point, we're struggling with burnout. We're struggling with people feeling like they have no capacity to take anything else on.
You're the one closer to the problem, so
Right.
I'm not questioning that.
So,
I just want to make sure.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
understand.
No. It's so complex. It's a big
Yeah.
picture. But we've heard these things, but we did not feel, we've heard these things for the last several years, that work quality, we need additional time to do this. We're seeing increased needs, both academically, behaviorally. We've got to have support to respond to. But compensation, we have remained steadfast in all of our efforts to be consistent. Many districts around us will back off a year and not give raises. We've been very consistent with your support in trying to chip away a little bit at a time, and it has allowed us to remain steady. We still have work to do there and still have needs. Obviously, our employees are sharing that is still a high priority. But there are also other needs, and we didn't feel that we could address those needs until we made sure what we were doing was efficient and appropriate. Now that we've done that and spent the last 18 months really looking programmatically and how we're using personnel, we've readjusted some things, and this is a direct effort and response to what our campuses are saying they need for their day-to-day work with students. And so it's sort of an and instead of an or, but we feel like this response is timed appropriately because we feel confident that the work we've done to lead up to this, we've done in a way that we're working efficiently. And now we can attempt to be more responsive to some of these direct needs.
Some of this is trying to do the best we can with the bad timing on information. So should the board support this later in the agenda, there's a consent, or there's an item later to take action on. With this number of positions, we need to get posted and get moving.
Yeah, sure. What are the odds you're going to fill these positions?
Well, that's, some of these I feel pretty good about. Some of these we'll have to kind of see how it goes. Would be nice is if we could have this conversation tied to a compensation package all at one time. Until we know what happens at the ledge, that's a very, very difficult thing to try and do. But we can't wait on the ledge, because if we're going to start making hay on this, we need to start doing it now.
Okay, so what's the backup plan?
Backup plan,
We
we
go
got
into debt.
$30 million in the fund balance, and we can do this for 1 year and pay out of the fund balance what we need to be able to treat the folks right. And then after that, if the legislature doesn't do what they ought to do, then we're cutting programs.
But we're making the decision right now for the next year. There's no,
More or less.
yeah, there's no turning
And I will
back.
tell you, if we get in a position where we have to start looking at reduction in size of staff, these would not be the positions that would be affected. These are critical to our success, is the way I view it.
Well, I agree. I mean, money is always important, but there are times when you rather have the help than the money. And so I get that as a parent through many situations. Someone just come over and help you. You're just like, you feel so relieved and a big weight is lifted. So I think it's good. We're trying to balance. I always want to give them more money, but it's also so important for people to feel like their load has been lightened and they're not responsible for everything and the help is there, because I think it feeds another emotional component that you have, and that you feel like they're listening. And it's not just about the money, it's more about their overall mental health and emotions to get the extra staff that takes a load off of certain people.
Well,
That piece doesn't get improved, that counselor's gonna get a lot busier.
Right, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of this feels to me like, we've been doing a lot of efficiency things to sort of, it's not really kick the can, but it's really kind of tightening where we can, hoping for the legislature to come through and help us. And it feels like, we've got a car and we're putting off a lot of the maintenance, and you just can't drive that long. Eventually, you have to come back and say, all right, we need to start filling in the gaps that we're finding, right? I mean, is that kind of a way to look at this? Is, hey, we've kind of cut back to where we can,
Yes,
and now
sir.
we need to start filling these things in, or it's going to dramatically change what this district feels like, right?
I think your analogy is spot on where I would tweak it just a little bit. And man, I hate saying this, but it's exactly how I feel about it, okay? But it's like driving horses. Like, you only drive them so hard.
Right,
Yeah.
you don't rest them.
Yeah.
And my staff our staff, y'all, we have demanded a lot in hopes of relief. And we're kind of at a point, I mean, I've got teachers telling me, Chris, I can go work in neighboring districts. They're specific. I don't want to give them credit. But make the same money and have a much lighter load.
Yeah.
And so the money matters. It matters, it matters, it matters. I feel like our teachers are going to get some money out of the ledge because they both agree on this. They may not do it the way I want them to do it, the basic allotments or whatever, but I do think our teachers are going to get some help. But I also think now's the time for us to maybe take advantage of that piece and use resources to step in. Okay, if they're going to get a little help on the money side from the ledge, then we have to try and address the other concerns, which are just the work life that they're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah,
Quality of work life.
And I think to your point, Rick, I mean, I think one of the big things we can do to make sure the staff knows we appreciate them is to help them in some of these areas. I mean, I think the number one item on that list, the PLC relief, is going to make the day-to-day work of a huge number of teachers at the secondary level a lot better if we do that.
And I hate
the
to
rest,
sound
I mean,
like-
the rest of these each are important too.
Yeah. And I don't want to sound like Captain Obvious on this, but the PLC relief is actually kind of twofold. It does give them that planning period,
Right.
but it reduces the overall number of students.
Right, and that's what I mean.
What you're kind of doing is reducing student load by holding that section out.
Right.
That's what you're doing.
Right.
So,
Speaking of workload, I wanted to circle back to the unfilled sub positions, because it sounds like that's an ongoing critical problem.
It is.
Is there anything we can be doing? Is there a creative strategy in place to target that piece of the situation?
Can we volunteer to sub?
Yeah, I mean, what can
We
we
would
do?
love
I know
to
we can't
have
be
you
paid.
all
I
as
didn't think-
subs on
I
that
know we're not
campus.
allowed to be paid, but.
I didn't think
You
we
can?
could sub. I
Can we
didn't
be
think we could
volunteers?
sub.
as volunteers, I think you can.
Oh, I
don't
can't?
think-
I didn't think we could sub.
I'd have, like, if there's,
Mr. Russick, is there something I never
You can help support.
Conflict of
I
interest
think
or
there's an
something.
issue with that.
Yeah, I don't
so.
think we can stop.
You can volunteer
I
that.
think I might need to look into that some more.
Yeah, I've always thought, I don't think we can, because I've thought about it before, but I don't think we can.
Yeah, we have used a variety of creative approaches to this. Of course, we're trying to onboard more substitutes. We held a sub-appreciation breakfast at the beginning of the year, got some feedback from them. We're looking at our sub-pay structure currently, but we're having to be very mindful of what that is in comparison to our paraprofessional pay plans and structures, because we've got to be able to differentiate that. We have hired a position at Midway High School that is basically a floating sub. It's a floating paraprofessional position that gets plugged in where there's shortage and need each day. We are tapping in, this is contributing some to the workload of our teachers, but at our secondary campuses, especially at the high school, this is a pretty regular practice that we're tapping into these teachers and some of their extra planning time in order to utilize them to help cover classes, and that is defeating the purpose of the planning time, and it's burning them out. We've got to be responsive. So we're looking at some creative efforts in our substitute approach as well. I wish I had a better answer there.
Are we I'm sorry.
Implementation of AI more and more, isn't that helping some with the workload aspect that we're having a harder time with, or not?
I don't know if our teachers would feel that relief yet. We're still in those pretty early stages of them getting comfortable with that. Some teachers who are very comfortable in utilizing that, beautifully integrating that in their classroom, probably would say, yes, they're feeling some relief there. I don't know that, I'm not sure.
Over time, we expect that to be
Over
the
time,
case,
I think it
but we're
could.
very early in that implementation.
Could we get more aggressive perhaps about communicating sub needs to our parent and grandparent population?
We sure can. I know through our communications department, we've pushed out information to principals to pass out to parents and encourage them. If you kind of get to pick and choose what campuses you substitute on. So if you come to be a substitute with us, you can choose campuses that your children are on and whatnot. And so I know that those efforts happened after our sub-appreciation breakfast in the fall, and we are pushing subs year-round, but we can definitely be more intentional about how often we're sending that message in our principals. Our principals are super great at recruiting parents they know have some time to do that, and they kind of know their parent base and who's got capacity, and so I think we could do another push there, for sure.
My wordsmithy brain is thinking, make a teacher's day, come teach for a day.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I know you and your team are doing everything you
That's
can.
okay. We're taking note. We're trying to think differently, think outside the box. It takes creative minds and new ways of thinking, so appreciate your time. Thank you.
Other questions? Everybody, all in, all done? All right, thank you,
Okay,
Ashley.
thank you.
Just want to make sure. It's a very, very important topic, obviously. Not just because of it, but as Mr. Tullis pointed out, the ultimate effect. So, completely shifting gears. Well, it does. Facilities committee, facility or facilities? Plural or singular? A singular on the agenda.
It's a singular committee.
Yes, sir.
Facility committee.
Facility study. Yes, we're studying. I don't know. It's a good question.
Facilities study
Really
committee
studying
or
facilities,
facility
but-
committee study? I like facilities study
Whatever moves
committee.
us along the fastest.
I'm just,
Let's go.
Colin's ready now. Dr. Allen, I think you got your marching orders.
Yes, sir.
You're going to need to be shorter than 30 minutes.
That'll happen. So I'm going to give you a quick summary on the first three meetings, and if I leave you with nothing else, hear this. The first three meetings have been data dump. It has been a lot of information, and so I will remind you briefly of the charge, and I think in light of Mr. Witt's comments, you've seen it, you've read it, you approved it. We'll go to the next slide. I do want to point out on this slide who the members of the committee are. Our ex officio board members, Mr. Russick, who's been at every meeting. Thank you for being there, sir.
Thank you.
And our committee elected as their chair, Jordan Berry. If you'd wave at everybody, Jordan, I know they know who you are, but in attendance tonight. and he's done a fantastic job of leading that group. And we were on a Zoom call earlier today planning for the next meeting and provided exceptional insight to help us make sure that we're steering this in the right direction. All righty? So we've completed 3 meetings. The next one's scheduled for April the 10th. And all of this is online. So every single one of these meetings that you see is, and I'll come back at the end, but these are publicly advertised. The reason Thursday, May 1st is highlighted is that is one that we're looking at changing the date on because we have so many events in the district affecting rising 5th graders. And we have a lot of parents with 5th graders on the committee, and we don't want them to miss that special event. So anyway, that one's kind of in flux. But all the rest of those meetings are set. All righty? So meeting 1, you'll see this is, we start every meeting with the committee with this kind of graphic too, but it kind of talks about what we discussed. And so we talked about demographics and enrollment. So you'll see on the next slide that we talked a little bit about the history of our facilities to make sure everybody on the committee was properly oriented to the age of our facilities and when they came on board. And then the next thing we did was show them an updated demographic report. And I put a red arrow at 2930 for Chapel Park because that's the big shift in the demographic report. There are 2 significant developments going on in the Chapel Park attendance zone. And for a while, what we were most concerned was what was going on at Park Hill Elementary. We are now probably as concerned with what's going on at Chapel Park as we are at Park Hill with development. I will tell you, just for you to have in the back of your mind while we're having this discussion, that should we choose to start trying to address some of these issues in a significant way, you might not be able to do anything to directly address those issues till 28 anyway. And so that's worth noting. All right. And then we got to meeting 2 where we talked about campus utilization. Now there's a difference between when you talk about campus use, you've got what you call capacity, which is if every single room were filled to the maximum amount of students and every single room were being used as a classroom. And then there's actual utilization, and they define basically what you can utilize on a campus is about 90% of total capacity at an elementary, and they target between 70 and 90 at a secondary campus. So we went back through the district-owned property and just reminded folks of where we had land. And then we showed them those capacity versus utilization numbers, Ms. Nguyen. And so there's some definitions of the difference between utilization and capacity and how you can gain efficiencies by the appropriate use of classrooms. In the next slide, what they saw was a chart that didn't look only at capacity, but also looked at utilization. And here again, you can see that we're going to be at 90% of our functional capacity in a number of our buildings in the next several years, and we'll be over that capacity at Park Hill by 27 and then Chapel Park by 29. Let me show you that another way. Next slide. There it is at the elementary level. So you can see that at our campuses we're at 93% of their functional capacity. That's 93% of 90% of total of complete capacity. Are y'all with me? I'm going quickly, but please stop me if you'd like. So our elementary schools are, generally speaking, starting to really bump up against that functional, against that utilization rate. And so you can see how that played out. Spiegelville Elementary is a little bit deceptive. We couldn't put more kids in that building if we wanted to because they're limited on water, wastewater. So that number is a little bit askew. Chapel Park is an 1,100 square foot building that used to be an intermediate, so that number is also there. And then Park Hills, intentionally, we're trying to limit that because of just how much growth there is out there, but that'll change going into next year. All right, you look at the secondary campuses, they'll look at 70% of that capacity. You can actually get that number much higher. You can get your utilization rate much higher without having to build a building by the way you run bell schedules and utilize classrooms. But if you just look at that 70% max, we're in pretty good shape there. MHS starts to bump up against it. But they're actually pretty good for about the next 10 years if you just look at those numbers over time. And so then that took us to our next meeting, which would have been meeting 3. And I need to, boy, listen, y'all hear me on this, okay? You're going to see dollar amounts on here. The dollar amounts should not be construed as the cost to accomplish work. These are not project dollar amounts. There's a calculation called a facilities condition index. And when you calculate a facility condition index, you look at the current replacement cost of the building, and that is just construction cost. It does not include labor or soft costs. So y'all know we could not rebuild Castleman Creek for $38 million. You know that. So that's just a construction cost number. But they take your total replacement value using construction cost, you divide that by needs in the building, and that gives you a facilities condition index. What is included in that number in needs are things that you would never actually replace as part of a project. So for example, trunk wiring in a building may be coming up on the BOMA definition of end of life. And so you have to put a calculation in for that. But you're not going to go rip out walls and replace wiring. That's just, it's not practical, it's not feasible, it doesn't make sense. So please do not equate these numbers to project cost. These are simply the numbers that are used to help define the condition of our buildings. Green is good, tan is fair, and darker tan / red is poor. Right now, we are delinquent on our deferred maintenance to the point that you can see those buildings that are in inferior to poor condition. And then if by 2030, if we don't address these issues, we'll have 4 of our elementary campuses that are in poor condition from an FCI perspective. And then if you look at our secondary campuses, which is the next slide, I'm sorry, district totals is the next slide. Again, that number is only meant to convey a little bit about order of magnitude. It's not, it's not hundreds of millions, but it is tens of millions of projects that could be considered over time. You'll also notice that we haven't received the data on the site conditions yet. That is parking lots, sidewalks, and lighting around buildings. And we shared all of this information with that committee in the last meeting. So they've seen a lot about the condition of our facilities, a lot about the utilization of our facilities, and a lot about the capacity of our facilities as you lay enrollment projections over time. And then if you'll look at that next slide, we've also toured campuses. We started off at Park Hill to sort of show folks this is what a brand new building might look like. And then we showed them Chapel Park to show them the power of renovation. I wish you could have been there, and this will mean more to some of you than others. But when Sarah Holland was walking through Chapel Park, because she was in that building as principal back when it was, Woodgate, and even before that, and her mind was blown. And it was so great for her to be able to speak to people from experience about this building. And so the power of renovation. And then South Bosque is the first building they looked at that hadn't received a facelift in a while, and the differences are fairly stark, and they got to see that. And so the last thing I would leave you with before I ask 2 other people to speak to this is that all of this information, if you'll look at that next slide for me, Ms. Nguyen, is available on our website. This is what the landing page looks like. It has every bit of information that we've shared with the committee. It has all the meeting materials. It has all the dates. We also provide written summaries of everything we've covered. Every bit of this is happening in a very wide open and transparent way. We're sharing a lot of information with our committee, but it's available to everyone else as well. And so I think what I would ask at this time, and you didn't know I was going to do this to you, but Mr. Russick is our ex officio. If he has any comments, he might chime in as a board representative. And then while he's speaking, Mr. Berry is going to come to the mic and speak to it through his lens as a non-employee who's a community member who's super smart and helps us in 1,000 ways, but just kind of what he's seeing as well. And then we'll answer any questions you might have. So Mr. Russick, do you have anything you'd add to this?
In deference to Mr. Witt, very, very short.
I think you spoke for the group, Mr. Witt.
I'm just kidding you. There have been, as the superintendent said, the amount of information at those meetings, I having been exposed to a lot of it as a board member, can only imagine if I hadn't seen a lot of that stuff before, it'd be like just overwhelming. And with that in mind, I have been very, very impressed with the staying power of the folks. The attendance has been good, and the attentiveness has been equally as good, and they're to be commended, those 40 some odd plus folks. So, and to their credit, that committee's got 5 former board members on it, which I think says a lot also. And Jordan, thank you for your willingness to serve as chair. Floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you all for letting me speak real quick. I'll echo a lot of that. Really, we do have a great group of people, represent a very broad sense of interest throughout the district, which is great. That was one of the very first things that we looked at in the first meeting, which I thought that was very impressive. Like y'all have both said, you know, we've seen lots of data, learned lots of new terminology, and really kind of gotten a basic understanding of school finance as well that we got last meeting, which was, I think, eye-opening for a lot of people as well. So really, I think the group is going well. Like you said, we continue to enhance our scope and narrow our scope each meeting. So really excited for the next 3 meetings, or yeah, 2 meetings, maybe a third.
6 maybe.
Yeah, maybe 6 meetings, yeah. So everything's going well.
Thank you, Jordan. Questions for Jordan?
I learned a phrase this month that I think is apropos, and it's being waterboarded with information.
That's a great way of putting it. And terminology.
Yeah.
You know, facility
Welcome to the
conditions
acronym
index.
alphabet soup.
Yeah.
In that regard, I would say credit to the folks that have presented at those meetings, including Dr. Allen, Emily, Tracy Marlin, our financial guru, Mr. Quiroga, I always say his last name wrong, Vincent.
Quiroga.
Quiroga, thank you, thank you. They've done a great, great job of really helping get that information in a format that even if you've never seen it before, you can comprehend it.
Yeah, I agree.
And do you feel like people on the committee are comfortable in asking questions? Is
Oh,
it
yeah.
a good back
Oh,
and
yeah.
forth?
Yeah,
Some
oh, yes.
really good questions.
Good.
Some more than others, but we give them avenues to ask questions where it's anonymous.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And so we're getting more and more questions, and the questions are starting to kind of narrow the focus
Sure.
as well, so which is good to see.
Right, because it's overwhelming at the beginning. I mean, that's a lot.
Oh,
so.
absolutely.
And one of the things that is a really good piece of it is those questions that they're able to submit anonymously, then, not necessarily everyone, because I don't know how many of them are asked but not answered, but I assume the major ones then, they're taken up at the next meeting and answers are then given so everybody can see what the questions were and hear what the response is, which has been really helpful.
Yeah.
Case in point, I showed you a slide that had the district property on it. That was a direct answer to a question. So someone said, can we see where the district owns property? So
Yeah.
we put it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say you feel like there's a good broad geographic representation and sort of involvement sort of across the district here? Because I think that's important as we look at where are we growing, what's next, what are those things?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think, like I said, at the very first meeting, we kind of all raised our hands with different kind of questions. And it was interesting to watch the room who represented different, you know, demographics, different interest, involvement throughout the whole district. I was very impressed by that.
Other questions for Jordan? Okay, Jordan, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate
doing
that.
this.
All right, middle of the year progress monitoring data. Where's Kim? There she is.
Good evening, Mr. Resnick and board, and thank you for allowing me to share with you this evening sort of our state of academics as we see it in the middle of the year. I know you've seen the data. There's some, I'll kind of give a brief synopsis, and other places I want to dig in and share a little bit more information with you. First of all, the types of assessments we give in the district. We do give several, and they all have different reasons that they're given. They give us different information in planning and meeting our student needs. First of all, would be our universal screening instruments. We have NWEA MAP, which is what we use for reading in grades K through 10. It is a cumulative view of a student's growth in reading. Reading is a process, so we'll look at that very cumulatively. Tango Lion is used for math, same. We're using it K through 8 now. We have a different algebra screener we're giving to students. It is web-based and it's built a little bit differently. You're looking at standards in a school year as well as how they did their previous year, so we can identify any gaps towards meeting our standards in Texas. Another type of assessment we give is what we term in the district benchmark assessments. These emulate what students will see on STAR. It is typically our STAR simulation. And so this is very predictive in nature for us in these last few weeks before STAR to where we need to meet student needs, whether that be if students need kind of gaps filled, or if they're doing well and we need to provide extensions. And then finally, a view that we haven't given in the past, but it's very important to look at how we're also progressing on our unit test. So this is assessments of current content, what's being taught at the moment, and how our students are gaining that content. And the benchmark is, of course, cumulative. So we look at both to really get a good prediction of how we feel like the district is going to perform on our STAR test. So we're going to take a look at our reading data first through the lens of NWEA MAP. And you have views here that show that first bar is the national norm, and then we see Midway's data. The thing that I want to point out about MAP data is that even a 0.5 growth is a lot of growth for students. So while we see these bars very incrementally going up, that is showing remarkable growth in our students. And so you're going to see this same pattern through each grade level. We have first and second here. We're really right now focusing on that middle of year bar, how we are increasing there. And we see our students growing from beginning of year to middle of year, but we also are looking how we compare to that national norm, that's the one there on the left, and the incremental growth. We continue to see that through each of our grade levels. I will click through these all the way through. There we go, English 1 and English 2. Our Tango Lion data, as I mentioned, it is built a little bit differently. While NWEA MAP is cumulative, this is based on standards taught in a school year. So you're going to see the first two bars are what Tango Lion, the product that we use, they term that off track and on track. And that's a parameter that they use in their company, predictive in nature. We're looking sort of to the bars on the right. Those parallel what we see on STAR. To the far right, we have this, what we would term does not meet, then approaches, meets, and masters. And so we can see in our kinder data, our kinder students are doing very well. You're going to see a glimpse. This is only middle of year data last year compared to this year. And then you'll see as we go through K1, 2, and 3, 4, we're seeing very similar trends. You're going to notice in grade 5, there's a dip in that far right category of does not meet. And there is a change in the assessment here. In K4, our students for math, this is just the way the program is built, so this is the way we have to administer. All students receive text-to-speech because we're truly testing where they are performing in their mathematics ability. In grade 5, that text-to-speech is removed, so all students, even if they typically get that, it is removed. So that's where we begin to see a little bit of difference in our data there. The thing that we are watching is that we're continuing to see it when we look closely at middle school math, grades 6, 7, and 8. So as a teaching and learning department, we're asking ourselves, does this measure match what we're seeing on our unit test and our benchmark test? And we'll look at that data in just a minute. It's actually different than we're seeing. So that does not mean is not matching the other data we're gathering. So then we start searching into the instrument, is it meeting our needs as a district? And that's actually where we are right now. Next is our benchmark data. When we made this presentation, we had completely administered all of our reading benchmarks. So you're going to see, we even have started doing this as far down as grade 2. So as our students transition to grade 3, we have a baseline of where they're going to be performing. And you can see our second graders are performing very well. Again, that bottom blue bar does not meet, and then approaches, meets, and masters, so it parallels STAR. And then you're looking on the benchmark data here, we're really looking at how are we doing on our benchmarks compared to where we were on STAR last year. And our reading data is looking very strong. We are very similar to where we were. Our reading benchmarks were taken in February. And we are looking very close to where our data was at STAR last year. This was, in fact, the 2024 released test. So we are looking at exactly how we did last year. You'll see a couple of spots where that high approaches is not there, that red bar. It just depends on if we were able to gather that data on the assessment. So as you continue to look at grades 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we are trending very well in our rating data. And as a reference, when we're looking at just achievement data, the state says, if we get ratings, that an average of 30% masters, 60% meets, 90% approaches, an average of 60 gives you an A. So we're looking at 30, 60, 90. Of course, our goal is to not remain there. Our goal is to increase our masters, to increase our meets, and continue to keep our approaches high. So when you're kind of keeping that gauge in mind, we feel really good about where we are in our reading benchmark data this year. I'm going to move into social studies. Our view here is a little bit different this year. We have, in the last 2 years prior, completed TTAP in grade 5 science. This year, with the standards change in science, we shifted this focus to grade 8 social studies. We wanted our students to have more exposure to the testing platform. Our students will be taking this test, depending on the middle school campus, today, or Wednesday or Thursday. So when you look up there, you can see that the data is trending lower than we would think. We do have a comparison to the state. We are performing above the state. But the thing that is very different about this test, even though because it is a pilot, it is released as not everything has been taught. And so we're hoping the test over the next 2 days will really give us a gauge of how we're going to perform, and then fill in gaps in those last few days before our social studies exam. So while it is lower than where we would like to be, again, not all content was taught, and we're still higher than state. So that was a good thing. When you look at this presentation, we had put it together again last week. Not all of our benchmarks had been given, so not all of the data is there. I've already mentioned TTAP. U.S. history was given on Friday, just at quick peek. We're feeling really good about our U.S. history data as well. And then moving into math. Once again, you're going to see grade 2 scores there, as we are beginning to capture that for grade 2 students as we help transition them to grade 3. The one thing I do want to point out with our math data, it's given in either February or March. And so with our elementary students, about 25% of the content had not been taught when students take this. So we let them know that, and our teachers use that data to help pre-assess for things that are coming up in the next few weeks as they're headed into STAR. And so while our scores look a little bit lower, this is where we really look to those unit tests and see how we're doing on content and isolation. The balance of the two tends to be a good predictor of how we're doing. So when you know that about 25% has not been taught, and we see that we're doing well on our unit tests, we feel good about our math scores as well. You'll see grade 5, we are still disaggregating that data, so that one is blank there. And then we have given the math and algebra 1 over the last couple of weeks too, and we'll be doing the same exact thing, looking very closely at the data to see how we can support campuses.
Kim, what's the difference between low approach and high approach?
Yes.
That's the only one I couldn't figure out.
That is newer. So when you're looking at low approaches and high approaches, it really doesn't factor into performance as much as it does growth. So if a student is low approaches, they're in that low end. It's like, they don't necessarily split it in half, but the state does split it in there. Okay. So we also now have low does not meet and high does not meet, and then low approaches and high approaches. So those two categories, they've split even further.
Okay.
So if a student were to move from low approaches to high approaches, we would get some points in the system for growth.
Because they're doing better, because
Right.
they're more closer to approaching
Yes, ma'am.
approach.
But it doesn't get us over the hump to like meets on the just straight
right.
achievement.
Okay.
Okay.
And then just to clarify, make sure I understand, when we're looking at one of these charts, benchmark would be looking at some things that haven't been taught yet.
That's
Unit
correct.
test covers what's actually being taught. So that's
Yes.
why those numbers are higher, because those concepts have actually been covered already.
That's right.
Got it.
Yes, you got it. I think I said that. I'm going to go ahead and click to science. So science, we sort of are in that same exact boat as a content. It has not completely been taught. But also in this school year, we have seen new standards implemented. And also this test is sort of a one-year test in science. They call it a crossover year. So anything that was in the old standards and that is going to be in the new standards is what will be assessed this year. And so new curriculum, new standards, we're learning all the things. And so when we see that a little bit lower, no, we haven't taught, but we're also still looking at how our students are doing on unit tests. We feel like that our science will align with where we have been, even in this crossover year.
Kim, I know we rolled out a new science curriculum for this year. Do we feel like that's been meeting our needs then, based on this, or is it too early to say?
Really, with curriculum, it's early to say. What we do is we take feedback with each unit from our teachers to see, okay, do we feel like this met our student needs? Do we feel like there anything we need to look at? There was a gap in instruction, and if that's anything we need to supplement next year. So really, it does take, anytime we get a new curriculum, a full year of exposure to that for the teachers. To know, is this meeting our needs? And then also for us to examine data and say, okay, we've seen it's going well here, but we need to cover more in this area.
That's fair.
So same thing, secondary tests, we have administered the science and biology finished up today. So we will be digging into that data soon. So as a teaching and learning department, our next steps are really to continue to disaggregate our student performance. We're looking, we're having a great shift in thinking in our district. From more than just mastering the standard, but to the level of thinking that our students need to be in the meets and masters categories. And so we're having those conversations with our administrators. We're having those questions with our discussions with our PLCs. So it's not just looking at mastering content, it's looking at our students' level of thinking, which trends to later testing for STAR, ACT, SAT at all lines. We're looking closely at our benchmark performance. Still data is coming in, and using that to make decisions about students, not just students who are struggling. If we have students that are right on the edge of masters, we want to intervene there to get them over that hump. So we're looking at student individual needs to see how we can best support them. We're looking at overall school performance as our department to see how we can support principals and teachers in these last few weeks. And then also just overall class performance to see if there's any specific teachers that we need to support. As mentioned, we're looking at reteach. We're looking at not just intervention, but how to extend for students. We continue to have our MTSS meetings so we can very much have individualized discussions on how to meet specific student needs. And our goal is support. We want to support campuses, we want to support teachers so that ultimately our students in the district perform well. What questions do you have?
So have y'all picked some areas to focus on? I would think from what I saw, there would definitely be some grades and some math or reading that need some extra attention. You know, trying to look at all the graphs and did this one go up or go down, which, you know, but some of them didn't go up, as you know, they would go down, so.
Yes, we are. We have our
That's
eyes
not
on
in
very
there.
specific content,
Okay.
and have spoken with principals and then teachers about that as well. But yeah, exactly what you're seeing in the graphs is where we're targeting our support.
Right, and I like how we're doing the multiple years. Is it possible that a certain grade just doesn't do well, right, in a subject? Are you able to track it back to maybe, not to pinpoint teachers, but there was a certain weakness in that year in that math category or something, and we were able to improve it? Is that
And
a way of
also,
thinking?
too, like, we're looking at it, we compared like one year to the next in this data, but we're also looking at cohorts of kids.
Right.
Because sometimes
Right.
there are a year where kids are lower. So now we're looking at, okay, if I had this data for these students in 7th grade, what are they now looking like in 8th grade?
Right.
And so that's a very telling picture for us how
Yes.
a cohort of kids is growing.
And I know that's important to the state as well, but that is so
Yes.
important to me, help us to pinpoint maybe some weaknesses in our on-class education or something. Just it needs more.
I remember having our elementary teachers say that they could identify, like, kids as a class have different personalities. The class of 2014 looked like this, and the class behind them looked like this. It's interesting that they kind of aggregate like that. It's just as a group of human beings, so.
That's
it's
true.
Interesting to see that in the numbers too.
this is a lot of work, so thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
I think it is
Thanks, Dr.
very helpful.
Ojima, who helped spearhead getting it all at a glimpse for you. So.
And thank you for waiting your turn in line. There was a lot before you. Thank you.
And so my question I always ask, are we sharing the middle of year data with parents in ways that are meaningful so they can understand, hey, how's my kiddo doing? What can I be doing to help them? Are we able to do that?
Yes, we share that, and we base from NWE MAP and Tango Line. There's a parent report that goes home at MOI. But we're also looking at ways to embed this MOI data into other platforms. So students, we have IXL now in the district where we can upload their actual math and reading performance, and it's creating individualized plans for kids to address wherever they are, whether it's gaps or extension.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else? Kim, one quick comment. And back to what Lisa said, the amount of data that this district has is incredible. And one of the things this tells me is this guy's got everybody looking at the appropriate stuff on the goal one aspect that's part of his goal, because you don't get to pay the attention to the individual students without knowing the data for each individual student.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
District annual report, Jess?
Last presentation of the night. Just think last month when I was up here presenting, we were wondering how much ice was going to be on it. And this afternoon, as I drove over, I had to ask myself if I had deodorant on. So it's that kind of month. So this is the district annual report for the 23-24 summary year. And so this is for everything that occurred last school year that ultimately will lead to a public hearing. And so what's in this district annual report? There's 7 sections that we're going to talk about tonight. There's also an 8th section with a glossary. But you guys can see each of those, and I'll go through each of those sections right here. For those in the audience, if you choose, you could use that to scan the QR code. All of the information we're going to talk about tonight is on our Midway ISD website, as well as our subsequent years. And the information from this report tonight will be placed on there after this meeting. So why do we have to do this now? Well, we're at the point that the state has summarized the entire year. The taper report is out for districts and schools. In addition to that, we're mandated through Chapter 39 to be able to do this as well through the Texas Education Code. And this is a final report of this year. Nothing you will hear tonight is new in any shape or fashion. It's just a review of those pieces and then to allow the hearing to occur. And so when we look, much of what Kim just spoke about and we talked about today is about the taper report. Midway continues to outperform the state, the region with our STAR scores, our TSI scores, our CCMR. The district has really placed a focus, as was just discussed, about each student individually growing as they look to achieve mastery level, whether it be going from low approaches to high approaches or low did not meet to high did not meet. Every student is being evaluated from that perspective. When we look at Section 2, it's about our PEMS Financial Standard Report. Our district continues to perform very, very well with a total variance of less than 3% of all those expenditures. The district continues to implement and refine our processes, has even been discussed tonight, to make sure that we're free of any misstatements, but also that we remain in those acceptable variances.
Les, could you explain that highlight in layman's terms for those of us who are not accountants?
Total variance of less than 3%.
What does that mean?
So the variance between our earnings report and the PEMS data, the total differences are less than 3%. Is what they're looking at, just making sure that they're consistent and accurate.
So we're spending the money that we say we're spending?
No, it's really looking at so our audit report, that those numbers is high, what's being reported in PEMS.
Okay.
Why they chose that one, I don't know.
I can do that on Section 3, or 4, 5, and 6 too if you want to. So right now, this slide, it says that Midway is accredited and received an accountability of an A, superior achievement. That's based off of our last known achievement score. Those scores are wrapped up in litigation. If and when those change, those will be adjusted. But as we've talked about today, tonight, the district continues to evaluate the data pieces that are instrumental in improving student performance as we evaluate all the different student groups, making sure that we continue to emphasize growth as the metric. If every student's growing, then we're moving in that right direction. Campus performance objectives. At the start of each year, you guys have the opportunity to view the campus improvement plans. Those campus improvement plans resemble that of the district improvement plans. Within those are performance objectives. Those performance objectives are reviewed throughout the year. All of our campuses update those performance objectives as they meet with their teams. The process itself, though, has become really embedded in the culture of how campuses and principals, district leadership meetings, et cetera, utilize those campus improvement plans as we kind of move towards those different pieces. And so in addition to that, there has been new periodic checks with each campus to really have some collaborative team concepts surrounded around those performance objectives as those folks continue to grow and do those things. And those have been very productive meetings. We have a report on violent or criminal incidences on campus. Again, this is from last year's information, where we had 3 occurrences of violent or criminal incidences that were considered mandatory expellable offenses. Obviously, Midway collects a lot of data relative to that in an effort to prevent violence, but in addition to that, to really provide some intervention opportunities for those kind of going forward. So this is the one that I find interesting. Your report that is in your packets that you received on Friday has different information than what is up here on this slide today, because I was hoping to be able to find some more accurate information. This information comes from the Texas Higher Education Board, and I don't know why this is the piece they look for, because it's fairly inconclusive. So you see there that 377 students of 590 graduates in 2023 went on to a 2-year, 4-year, or independent college. And of those 377 who went to a 2 or 4-year college or university, 77 earned a 3.0 or above. Well, that's only if they went to a public school. And so any student that goes to Baylor and makes a 3.0, they're not represented in that piece. In addition to that, for those 2023 graduates, in the 213 of the 590 graduates who were not reported enrolled in a Texas public school or an independent higher education in 2023, or they were untrackable. So what that means is we have 213 students that did a few things. They may have left the state and gone to college. They may go to a college in the state that they are not bound to report to the Texas Higher Education Board, or they've simply gone to the workforce and didn't go to those pieces. And so that 213 out of that 590 is somewhat misleading, because it may accurately, but we don't know if it accurately represents the exact number of students. So I apologize that what was on your Friday to here, I was just really trying to find some of the better information that was there for that. So, and then, go ahead.
It's frustrating. I mean, those numbers don't really matter. Because they're not accurate. You know,
and we're a
missing
little
all those
bit
pieces.
of an anomaly. The single greatest employer of parents who have children that attend is Baylor. Yeah, and not every public school system has a university like that. And so for us, it's not only is it a university, but it's a private university. And because of the tuition remission rules, we got a bunch of kids going to Baylor. So it is what it is.
It's just not right.
In addition to that, Kim just shared some of these different pieces out here, but we do have House Bill 3 goals that were recorded to report. Highlight of that is our CCMR remains very strong at 95%, exceeding our 94% target. We do have grade 3 early childhood literacy and math performance goals. Both of those did decrease. Thus, you see the need for individualization, for evaluation of data, for the varying different student groups and pieces out there to build some strategies and working with those campuses and individual student groups to be able to improve those different areas. And then lastly, working to individualize some of those opportunities to ensure that every student has access to that CCMR piece moving forward, really trying to find those 4.4 for those different students. And with that, questions? And then I'll leave it to Mr. Russell.
No questions from the board? Thank you, Jess. We are required by the Texas Education Code to not only have that annual report, but we're required to conduct a public hearing. I'm delighted that tonight we actually have a member of the public in attendance who doesn't wear an employee hat also. Jordan, I'm looking at you. Because normally, by this hour of the night, there's no member of the public to hear from. So with that, we'll open the public hearing and invite the public to come speak.
He's not biting.
I think he's not. Not hearing from any member of the public, we will close the public hearing, and the district then will, within 2 weeks following this meeting, publish the annual report on its website and other public places and otherwise comply with the statute, I know. So that said, we're to consideration items, the consent agenda. We've got minutes from our February meetings, a number of early graduation requests, our new course approval, a number of out-of-state trips, our policy 124 update, our action on unopposed candidates, both accepting them as being elected and canceling the election, the budget amendment that was referenced in Wesley's presentation, the new personnel positions that somebody talked for a little while about, and the superintendent's performance goals. Does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove number 4, the course approval.
Okay. That said, anybody else? I don't want to cut anybody off. If not, do I have a?
Number 8.
Number 8?
Those are for questions.
Okay. That said, I'll entertain a motion to approve 1, 2, 3, 5. I get it up off the floor. 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Tullis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Alford. Did you say it first, Brad? I think. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Let's take them up in numerical order. New course approval, Pam?
I just wanted to highlight something in the course description where it reads, it's an opportunity to provide our students an opportunity to grow as thinkers and hone critical thinking skills. And I track that back to the discussion we had when we were talking about global employment trends and shift in technology and what is going to become more critical that our students learn to do so that they're prepared for that workforce and to do things that only people can do. And I believe Mr. Witt spoke very directly and eloquently to that. This was something that we highlighted. We want to make sure our kids can do. So I just wanted to point it out.
Good. Thank you. And I'm going to take that as a motion to approve number 4 on the consent
So
agenda.
moved.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Vick. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries unanimously. Mr. Witt, your policy question.
I just wanted to verify, this is what we saw a month ago,
Yes.
and now we're approving it.
Yes,
No changes from what we saw a month ago. I didn't read all of them again.
No.
No changes. So
You've learned.
I move adoption of number 8.
Thank you, Colin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Green. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion also carries unanimously.
I would just like to say I'm very proud of all the students going to the national competitions
We are
for the
Yes,
state
ma'am.
trips.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
awesome.
It's a great,
Always support that.
great
Always,
thing.
yes.
That's an easy one.
Professional contracts. We don't need to go into closed session on that topic, do we? It's just,
You do not, you do have an addendum at your seat.
I was going to
Yeah,
point that
I saw
out.
that.
Consider that, yes.
Right.
I'm just sad to read the separation list. I really hate reading that list.
It always seems overwhelming at this time of year
Yeah.
because we collect
resignations and retirements over a couple of months, and I put them all here, so it was overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, I'm sad when I see anybody's, sorry to see you go.
If no further discussion or any questions on the professional contract item, then I would entertain a motion to approve the recommendations from the superintendent as reflected in the addendum at your seat.
I did have a question.
Okay, I'm sorry,
No,
Susan.
that's all right. There were just a lot of separations at Castleman Creek, I thought, more than usual, and then River Valley. The high school's so big, that didn't, kind of surprise me, but is there a trend? Is there a reason? Are these people near retirement? Or I know it says on here we have a few retirements, but there's mostly end of contracts.
So we're actually this year for the first time actually tracking that as we go campus by campus and looking for those exact trends. And having follow-up conversations as needed. I think that at River Valley, people are heartbroken at the departure of Jennifer Allison. I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek. It is not unusual when a principal leaves a campus.
Really? Okay.
For some number of people to leave at the same, I said this when Paul left. They hang around for a little while and they're right up, like they're trying to decide if they want to retire or not, and they get to the, we don't want to break in a new principal thing. But outside of that, we continue to have these exit interviews and evaluate those very questions as we go. Yes, ma'am.
And you'll let us know.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was actually going to point out the fact that even though her name is sadly not on our list for next year, that Jennifer Allison is here at our meeting. The dedication, so appreciated.
Till the end, yes.
I hadn't let her quit yet.
Well, she hasn't. She's here.
I
living in denial.
I want to follow up on what Colin just said, because I was going to make a specific comment about that. You beat me to it, but credit for recognizing it, because I appreciate the fact that you're here too. Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
We're glad we got you back for a little while, and if things change again, the door's open.
It's bittersweet.
I know.
I should have made West Allison come sit right here with us.
Whither thou goest, I know it's hard, but you will be greatly missed, and we thank you for many, many years of service.
We're excited. God's all over the decision, but
Yeah.
it's still very bittersweet.
So, professional contracts, any other questions or discussion? If not, do we have a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Witt, second by Mr. Tullis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. That brings us to other personnel items, which I'm assuming we're going to go spend some quality time in closed session.
Yes, sir.
So, Superintendent's communications?
I will be brief. Two things I want to mention. First of all, it may be noticeable to you that there were a number of items that ordinarily Becky would present that she's not doing this evening. She is with her daughter at second round soccer playoffs. She has a senior on that team who's a captain. And so when they won Friday, we did some scrambling. But I mentioned that to say, you'd asked earlier, what can the board do to support? Supporting the district stance that we want people to be there for those big moments in their families' lives, especially the children. But hats off to Jess and Kim for being there to the map data stuff that Becky would ordinarily do, same thing with Taper. So thank y'all for being so good at your jobs that she could not be here and we had a productive board meeting. So thank y'all for that.
You should have played Stop Kim while she was up.
Well, I think she's glad you didn't.
We took pity of
Yeah. And then the final comment is this, and I'm going to make this more brief than I should for the sake of time. But I will mention that last Tuesday night and Wednesday, I was at an event called Waco Day in Austin, facilitated by Mr. Tullis. I think the reason I was able to go is because he...
Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, you got me on the list, but I think I was able to go because of Mr. Tullis's connection with that leadership. But it was a great event. I'm very, very proud of the leadership of the Greater Waco area for showing up and for really having a really large contingent. But the second thing I would say is this. I do go full blast on the ledge sometimes because they're just not taking care of children. But I was impressed with the fact that we heard, and it was a meaningful group, y'all, but what was there, about 30 of us, I guess?
70.
Wow, were there that many?
Yeah.
Okay.
It dwindled towards the end of the day, but we started with 70.
These are very, very, very busy people that I'm getting ready to run. I'm not going to give you an exhaustive list. We heard from Glenn Hager directly, like we're in an auditorium, so he came in just to speak to us. We heard from Speaker Burrows. We heard from Pub Ed Chair on the House side, Brad Buckley. We heard from the coordinator of the Texas Education Coordinating Board. And the list could go on. I'm really going to spare you all of it. But I'm very impressed with our elected officials taking the time. The night before, we heard from Brian Birdwell, taking the time to come visit with us and stand in front of us and say what they had to say. And it wasn't all popular. They know who they're kind of standing in front of. And depending on the issue, you're kind of stepping on some toes here and there. But they stood up there and they visited with us. And despite the fact that they make me mad as a wet hornet sometimes, I appreciate when people will stand in front of you and communicate. And so I was very appreciative of the chance to be a part of that. I think it was very productive. Due to the coordination of Representative Curry, I had a meeting of about an hour and 20 minutes with Commissioner Morath. That was pretty much just me and the commissioner. And that was very impromptu. Like, I'm talking to Pat Curry, and before I know it, the next morning I'm meeting with the commissioner. So it was productive, and I think it was time well spent. And I was pleased to get to be a part of that event, and pleased to be able to tell you that I think there's a lot of good work done there on behalf of the greater Waco area, but Midway ISD more specifically. So thank you, Mr. Tullis, for your work on behalf of the chamber, but thanks for coming. Getting to make sure I got to tag along. So thank you very much.
Dr. Allen, would it be all right if we mention what we're doing tomorrow night?
I would defer my time as in superintendent communications to Ms. Watts to update on what's going on tomorrow night.
Emily, do you want to speak to that?
Yes. Tomorrow, Pam and Russ Johnson and Ms. Watts have worked very diligently to survey all of the school districts in the region to ask their board members about interest for our Heart of Texas School Board Association. To find out some topics they'd be interested in learning about, what things would be indicative of them coming together to be a coalition that better supports public education, not only in the county, but in our region. And tomorrow, we have our very first interest meeting, and I believe we have 9 districts represented, big and small, so we've got a very good wide range there. And we've got all the pieces working, and all the way down to ice cubes and cups. We're all set, ready to go.
So asking for blessings on that.
Yes.
Sharing the proverb, if you want to run fast, run alone. If you want to run far, run together.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you for doing it.
And you're going to be there, right?
I'm going to be there. Am I the only one that's going to be there?
I'll probably be there after they run.
Cool.
Thank you all for carrying the torch for Midway.
Because I have a torch.
Anything else?
Not before closed session.
So 9:26, 27?
27.
27. 9:27, we're going to close session under 551.074.